Just because I can, does that mean I should? That is one of the tenets of my own spiritual practice I've had to keep at the forefront of my mind as I have balanced 12 years as a professional medium in how many readings I can do and how I hold my energy in such a way that I can continue to do readings after all these years. This was a podcast request by a listener, and that is the topic of today's Spirit School episode. Welcome to Spirit School. I'm Danielle Sarank, a medium and spiritual mentor and storyteller with over a decade experience, here to guide you through the profound intersections of spirituality, healing, and self-discovery. Spirit School is more than a podcast. It's a sanctuary, a place where you can connect with the wisdom of the unseen world, explore the depths of your own soul, and uncover the boundless life force energy within. Whether you're stepping into your spiritual gifts, navigating a healing journey, or seeking tools for a life filled with intention and meaning, you belong here. In each episode is a beacon of light, blending heartfelt stories, practical teachings, and reflections from my own path. Together, we'll celebrate the magic in the mundane and discover the extraordinary in everyday moments. Through Spirit School, we co-create a world where hope thrives, inspiration uplifts, and the power of spirit is undeniable. Welcome to Spirit School. Let's continue this journey of light and transformation together. Thank you, everyone. This is a podcast request from a listener, Jackie, who commented on my Instagram. Beautiful messages. This was in response to a reel I created, giving mediums and psychics a tip on not being judge, jury, and executioner of the quality of the information that came through their sessions, and really allowing the sitter to determine and define for themselves what you said that landed, what you said that healed, what pieces of information were valid, what pieces of information were healing. We don't always get to be judge and jury of that as readers. Our job is to be the communicator on behalf of the unspoken world. They speak through us. We are their communicators. So in response to this reel that I did, she said, beautiful messages. Thanks, Danielle. Out of all your podcasts, I have never heard you talk about how you keep your energy up high enough to do readings. Can you touch on this at some point and some time? As a working mom trying to start up my animal communication business, it's hard to balance trying to keep my energy levels up. What's your secret? And how many readings in a day? What is the average limit for you? Thank you, Jackie. She continues to say, I'm one of those silent observers learning from you for years. Thank you for all that you teach us along the way. Your teachings are always easy to understand and greatly appreciated. Oh, thank you, Jackie. I was like, yes, honey, I will absolutely record on this. Thank you for the suggestion. On my Instagram, I even posted this last week. I said, sometimes I open my app, guys, and I realize I've only posted memes for 2 months other than my stories. I'm in my stories every day. If you're ever curious what I do day to day, what I do with the kids, what I do with the dog, the stuff that I'm navigating, a lot of the confidential stuff I share about in the collective, my membership. And then on Instagram, I'm in my stories a lot. I don't post a lot. I have had requests from people to post more. But I think because I create so much content for Spirit School, like the initiation, we're wrapping up next week, the initiation. This is our 12th round of teaching mediumship. And this ended up being a 4-month round because I had surgery and I needed some time off. So between the Spirit School Collective, I teach every weekend there. I'm in the community almost every day. And between the initiation and all the different things that I love to teach and talk about, I get asked a lot locally to go speak. I'm speaking on money next week at Quest University for the Squamish Women in Business program. So I'm always creating content, classes, lectures. When it comes to social media, I open it up and I draw a blank. And sometimes I'm like, what do you guys want me to say? Like, sometimes I'm like, I feel like I've said so much. So I have this desire to meet your guys' needs as podcaster. I've been podcasting now for 6 years. So thank you, Jackie, for bringing this through. Just know whether you're commenting on Spotify, whether you're commenting on my Instagram, or you're coming into Spirit School, or even the collective, especially the collective, I see you. And I appreciate you speaking up, even if you're one of the behind the scenes listeners, because thousands of people download this podcast every month, even when I haven't been consistently posting, which is unreal to me because I haven't consistently posted for about 1.5 years, 2 years. So yeah, I take requests. please let me know what you would like to hear from me, and I'm happy to create it. I am working on a second podcast project for myself, which I think will launch in January, but I'll tell you about that later on in the year. And I'm writing a book. My goodness, there's a lot going on. Okay, so let's get back to the topic at hand. And I'm just going to riff on this. I haven't prepared notes. I just want to see what stories come up. And I want you to know that there has been such an evolution of this topic for me and different things that I had to consider and weigh out. I'm hoping that through this conversation, I'll have some higher arching philosophy that you can carry with you no matter where you're at in your journey. But I want to talk about the seasons of my journey because there's a lot of listeners that are just starting out, that are advanced and like well on their way. I have a lot of people who listen who are my peers. And so I wanted to just share about the different seasons that I've been in and different considerations I've had to have around this. As a TLDR, too long, didn't read, didn't listen. How it started for me was I did what I could. I was only able to really work 2 Saturdays a month, 2 half days, and I would fit 4 readings in for each of those Saturdays. So I was essentially doing 8 readings a month. I would eventually try to slip in a couple evenings and weekends. I speak about that a little bit later in the podcast. But eventually I got to a point where I wanted to do more. So I quit my job, and my job was like, nope, we want to keep you. What do you need? I was like, well, I want a day to do readings. What ended up happening was I started doing readings on Fridays, and I would do 4 every Friday. So then I was up to 16 readings a month. So then I was able to do a lot more and free up my evenings and weekends. And I wanted more of that. So then I started creating like a life, like how many readings would I need to do to be able to make equivalent money to what I make now? And that number was 9 readings a week. I explained a little bit more about my decision making around that as well. And then I started diversifying how I serve spirit, which wasn't just readings, but moving into teaching. The podcast goes into length, my decision making around this, and how it changes all the time. What I could do versus what I do are very different because I want to live a big, big life. I don't think that there's necessarily a limit to what I could do, but I would say where I'm at now, I probably wouldn't do more than 4 to 6 readings a week because I have the membership and because I have a lot of other things going on. If I was just doing readings, I would probably do 2 a day and maybe 1 or 2 days a week do 3. I think that to me would be a really nice balance. The thing about doing readings is like they might cost a lot more money, but we can't do 8 hours a day. I personally know people who have done up to 40 readings a week, 30-minute mediumship readings, and make really good money doing that. But I wouldn't say that they're the healthiest and happiest people I know. So I'm just going to share that as a little TLDR and go into long explanations for the rest of the podcast episode. And hopefully it helps. One of the most truthful quotes I've ever heard was an old boss that said, I have not felt rested since the 2nd trimester of my first pregnancy. I was like, amen, sister. Yes. So I think that as a mom, and I've been a mom now for 12 years, and I've been a medium for 12 years, I have always been working off of an energetic deficit that I have come to accept. I can still get a lot done, even though I feel tired all the time. I don't present tired because this is what I love to do. This is what gives me life force energy. My readings are what give me my peace, my joy, my radiance, my spiritual connection. It's getting to them that is hard. That's our humanity. The humanity is getting to that reading. And then spirit takes over and it's always really good, no matter what my energy level is at. And that has been a mind F in itself because I will sit there sometimes. And I remember early days, I remember even the first day I went to go do public readings. I was so nervous. Can you imagine how much I drained myself just thinking about the readings, like overthinking about them? I think I had like 6 readings booked that day and there were mini readings. So I was kind of doing this like psychic fair format. I was paying $20 an hour for an acupuncture studio here in Squamish. I was fully booked and I was only charging $20 a reading. So I wasn't making money. I was just kind of paying for the space, but that was okay. I was learning how to perform my mediumship and conduct it under the pressure of money because that was a big stretch for me after doing it for free for 4 years. So it was well worth the experience for me to do this. And I remember me and my husband getting into a fight on the way to the studio. And I remember calling my mentor at the time, just like crying and just saying, oh my gosh, can you please tell me, can you do reading sad? She's like, yes, there's power in sadness. Of course you can. So I went and did my readings and they were fine. And by the time I left my readings, I was so happy. The readings gave me life force energy. But believe me when I say that going up to that, I had a newborn baby at home and a 2.5-year-old at home and a very grumpy husband who did not understand what I was doing. This was back in 2017. And, was a little bit of an adversary for me at the time. He's a total ally now, but he was an adversary for a lot of years for me. And I always had to manage that energy on the side, but it always was the readings that gave me a lot of the energy. And I think the more that I experienced that, the easier it was for me to get into that chair. But I'm a slow study. If you can't tell by the history of this podcast, nothing happens really fast for me. It might look really fast to you guys, but I'm on about a 2.5-year creation cycle. Like I can recognize for myself that I can manifest something huge within 2.5 years. That's still a long time. That's a lot of living. So I want you to know that what I have seen over the years, first and foremost, this is more of a higher arching philosophy, is every single time I've had morning sickness, I've been sad, I've been drained, and I sat down and did a reading, it worked. I've only had a few readings that haven't worked and I've been feeling fine as I stepped into them. I wasn't their person. That happens. I'm sorry to tell you that. Anyone who does this work long enough and is honest enough will encounter a client that they can't read for eventually. I know that sounds scary, but it's not as scary when it happens. It just is what it is. And I trust the spirit world as my algorithm and as my agent that there's divinity behind that. So I try not to fight it. So going back to, yes, I have done readings through headaches. I have done readings through sleepless nights. I have done readings through morning sickness and through headaches. And that takes me back to the first thing I said in this podcast, just because I can, does that mean I should? Right? Same with I could do a 2-hour reading, but should I just because I can? No, I have to be a little bit more conscious of how I use my energy because my energy is not in a day-to-day setting in a 24-hour human cycle. It's not endless. Of course, energy is endless and not to be destroyed, but we are still human. So we are an energy body experiencing life in a physical human body that has its limitations. So I will tell you that when it comes to capacity, we filmed a TV pilot a couple years ago. If you follow me on Instagram or if you're in the collective, you know a lot. But this was a couple years ago. It was November 2023. TV producers show up and I had not done very much that year because I was building the school and hosting my first retreat. So all of my life was focused on business and the first retreat. I had people traveling from all over the world. I was feeling a lot of pressure and I wasn't able to do as many readings. I was just not in that mindset. And I was really nervous heading up to the TV filming because what they wanted, I originally thought they were coming just to, film my group reading that I had organized. But no, they're oh no, in the morning we'll do a one-on-one reading and then we'll go into the group reading and then we'll do interviews and we'll get some B-reel. And this was in a 10-hour day sprint. And I was sitting there wow, okay, I haven't done a group reading in 3 years for real. Because it was before the pandemic, I did them and then we had lockdown. And then you guys know my career kind of took off in a different way. So it was my first group reading I had done in 3 years. I'd really only done a couple private sittings as I was building the school, and they were usually pro bono and more compassion readings for people in need and that couldn't afford it. And I love doing those. Those are some of my favorite readings. I was so scared. And again, sorry, husband, I'm not calling you out, but I love you. He's not listening. But again, same thing happened when I went to that studio. We got in an argument that morning. And I was seriously, we're going to do this today? We never argue, ever. I'm today's the day. I am so scared right now. And it was one of those instances, that filming day, that first one, where I had to lead myself I've never led myself before because there was no one really nurturing around me. There was no one holding me. There was no one holding space for me. There was no one to motivate me. It was all me. And I remember changing because I was struggling and I was just talking to a few people, and like they were all in their own things, right? They were all in their own things, holding their own selves in their own way. So I kind of sat in my office and said, okay, Danielle, this is you. You got to do this on your own. And I got through the whole 10-hour day. And I left that experience so elevated. And I basically said to my spirit, I said, I will never question my capacity again. Because old Danielle years ago would have really questioned if I could have made it through this day. And I did make it through the day. So I want you to know that I think when it comes to spiritual things, especially if you're coming from like a service place and a place of like heart and a place of service, I really do think it works out. It finds its way to work out. But just because you can does not mean you should. So the examples I gave you are more extreme circumstances. I also had to move a reading this week because my son had a trampoline incident. Right? So I had to like move a client, and then I had to move a second client for something. So things like this come up. I have to base myself on a capacity, like ripping my son down to, a doctor to go get a bit of a scan. Will I really have the capacity to do a reading as soon as I get back after 2.5 hours in the car dealing with the medical system? I'm like, oh my God, that would probably put me out for the rest of the day. So when I wake up every day, so this is one of my practices. When I wake up every day, I accept that I have 100% in me. That 100% in me is different from yesterday. It's different from last week, and it's going to be different tomorrow. But this is the energy I have to work with today. How shall you have me spend my time? And I ask the spirit world that, but I also ask my higher self that, because there's endless things that I could do, like podcasts, like pre-record some class content, go live into my community, open up a few readings, promote the retreats, like answer the 190 emails I've been sitting there for like a couple months. Like there's so many things that I could do. I have to take an energy budget in. I have to understand how much capacity do I have? How do I feel today? What is stirring alive within me today? Am I chatty? I'm not going to sit and record a podcast if I have my PMDD and I don't want to see or talk to anybody. That's not how I'm going to spend my capacity that day. So this is Danielle of today, who has this as her full-time work, her full-time business. I get to play a lot with my capacity. And because there's a demand for my work, I'm in a position now. So I'm kind of starting to where I am now, and I'm going to work my way backwards. I'm in a position now, and I'm very, very blessed that if I opened up a couple spots next week or next month, they would fill. And so I can actually choose how much I work based off of my capacity and other things I have going on, right? Like my daughter's away this week. So I actually have a lot more capacity this week than I had last week because I'm not cooking for 4, I'm cooking for 3, right? I'm running 1 kid around to activities, not 2. So it is a little bit lighter. So I have more capacity to play with. So I was able to do a bit more promoting this week. I was able to, write a bit more for my book. I was able to, get through some of my emails. I had a little bit of extra to give. And that's where I am today. I will say that as I started to make the choice to go from part-time to full-time, I really had I did the math, right? Like I got it on paper, like this is my rate. How many readings would I need to do to make a comparable income to what I was leaving? Because that was obviously the goal. And yes, I could do it. It was 9 to 12 readings a week at my rate at the time. But then I started thinking like, wow, what if I get sick? Or what if I want to go to New Zealand? And I started looking at like, okay, then that would be like 15 readings 1 week. Like, could I actually do that? I don't think so. So I started to see that it may be harder to have a career and make a living doing just readings because of some of these considerations that I have. I also have to take into consideration that when it comes to the private sittings, compared to when people come to show up to learn to train, to be intuitive or psychic or medium, hearts are on the line, right? Grief is on the line. Not only do I have to ensure I have capacity, but I also have to ensure that I'm coming at this from a very heart-centered place. Compassion fatigue is real. For motherhood especially, compassion fatigue and burnout is so real. We are in empathy overload as parents. And then we have a job that relies on our empathy as well. It can be really complicated and taxing. It can truly be taxing. So we have to like manage that as well. It's going to be interesting for me to see when my kids are teenagers what capacity I'm going to have, because big kids, big problems. I'm enjoying the little kid problems right now. I have an 11 and an 8-year-old. So I started to think about it back then. I said, okay, to make sure I have the capacity and the energy and the heart and the intention to do the readings I really like to do, which are not surface readings. I don't do well surface anything. I'm a Scorpio rising. It's deep or nothing. Can't do small talk. Can't do, oh, it's my future. I'm like, no, what do we need meat. We need something to work with. I like going deep with people. I like transformational readings. I like the healing. So I have to kind of look at, how can I create a life that I can make sure that these sessions are done in a way that I really want them done. And that's where I started to incorporate the teaching. I will say that the teaching came in because of a request through the podcast. I had somebody to ask, like, can you teach us something online? And I taught my first online class. And so now I was able to have 2 income streams in my spiritual practice. I wanted to make sure I had the most capacity possible for the people I was serving in my private sittings, because that's where the need was. That's where the really, really deep work was. But my joy was teaching people how to do this. So then I started opening up my spiritual practice to multi-ways of serving. And I would say capacity-wise, when it comes to compassion fatigue and compassion burnout, and it comes to, I have all these experiences. I just want to share them with people so that they can grow and evolve. I love having these 2 areas that I can work in, because there are seasons that might be months long where I don't have it in me to do the private one-on-one sittings. And I'm just being really real with you. There has been maybe 4 times over the past 12 years, I have had to take breaks of 3 months to up to 8 months from doing private readings. And if I didn't have the teaching, if I didn't have the mediumship, I would have had to find a job. But I was overloaded with empathy. I was overloaded with compassion just because of all the different things I was going through. So yes, I could have served, but would that have been the most ethical thing to do? Right? Probably not. So I'm always having to think about like my ethics and my integrity in this work. And it's like, people are spending now $400 Canadian, which is about $280, which is not a lot for my experience, but it is a lot of money, especially in 2025 for a lot of people. And so I want to make sure that when people come and sit with me, I can be at my very best. So I will move sessions if I know that I can't be at my very best. And I was talking to a friend last week who's a channeler. So she thinks, I'm not going to name names, but she thinks mediumship is very low vibe, which I just laughed when she said that, because I was like, I could totally see how you think that, because she channels like divine beings and like deities. And she's a very well-known channeler. She's high in demand, podcaster, YouTuber, best-selling author. Like, she's the real deal. And in her experience, mediumship is very low vibe and draining compared to channeling. I notice students who develop mediumship tend to love to go to Akashic Records because it's like very high vibe. In essence, in mediumship, if we're looking at things in layers and levels, the deceased are really just one dimension above us. So we don't have to go as high as, say, if we communicate with angels, which to me are the highest divine beings I've ever encountered, the energy. So some people may find mediumship to be depleting for them, or there's going to be people who are more like me that find mediumship energizes them. Spirit does nothing but energize me. But I have been in situations with different readings where the content has been really heavy. There's been like a lot of trauma. And it's never been the spirit that brings it through that depletes my energy. It's usually the space holding for the sitter, and I don't mind that. I can just only do so many of those. Right? I can only do so many of those. When it comes to the capacity around my death doula work, I can only do 2 or 3 deaths a year, because the amount of empathy and compassion it takes to sit with someone while they're passing and have conversations with them and hold space and be mindful and to hold the energy in the way I have to in that work, I can really only do 2 or 3 a year. And I haven't done one since last February because it made me energy sick. So I'm going to talk about all this too. Hopefully I'll be able to remember everything. I want to go through the journey a little bit more. When I was part-time doing this, right? So when I was kind of balancing that, I'm not quite ready to go full-time, but I want to do this more than just 1 weekend a month. There was a season where I would try to do readings 2 Saturdays a month, 4 readings for each Saturday. So 8 readings a month. And I would try to find 1 or 2 evenings that I could fit 1 or 2 people in. There were even times where I tried to fit people into lunch breaks. That never worked well. So we don't do that anymore. A lot of those were more practice ones or pro bono ones. But what I found, and I still find to this day, is I have a lot of energy between like 9 and 2. And after 2, I'm kind of done. I'm really done. So I see a lot of mediums do group readings. I'm going to do one next Friday night at 6 because I always want to play and test with my own capacity. But I'm so done. By the time I pick up kids from school, I can't work after I get the kids from school. There's 2 sides to this. One, I just want to live. By that time, I want to be with my family. I want to like scroll like everyone else. I want to play with the dog. I want to jump into the hot tub. I want to like, catch up on what's happening in the world. So I really only ever really liked to work during work and school hours. And that was a big barrier and limitation from people who were used to booking me on the evenings and weekends to when I went part-time and I negotiated with my workplace to not work Fridays there anymore because I did quit and they wanted me to stay. And they said, how can we make you stay? And I said, well, I have this other passion and I want more time to pursue it. So they gave me 1 day a week off. And then I was able to start doing readings on Fridays. And that was like so perfect for me. Going back to the beginning, I was just so invested in the path that I really just wanted to make it fit. And it was in the very beginning that it was the hardest. And this is where I wanted to kind of end because this is kind of where you are. Back then, it was tricky because I had 2 little babies. At one point, there was 1 baby, and then there was 2 babies. And then I've already talked about my hubby. He's been mentioned many times on a podcast. And I was also a bit of a people pleaser, and I was insecure. And I wanted to make sure I was making Spirit proud. And so I didn't have the boundaries I have now. And I would deplete myself to no end because if people reached out to me, I would try to fit them in. And I would, not honor my marriage. And I can see looking back how frustrating that would have been for my husband because I would have these boundaries. Okay, I'm going to do this Saturday and like this Thursday night. And then I would come in and say, oh, on Tuesday, I have to fit someone at 5. It's just going to be 5 to 6. And of course, it would be 5 to 7. And this created a lot of resentment in my marriage because I wasn't honoring my commitments. And a lot of it was because I wanted to do the work, but most of it was because I was trying to make other people happy. And I was trying to make the spirit world happy. And I was trying to just honor what was coming my way. And I would say that the most exhaustion I felt in my work was the days I didn't have the boundaries. But again, sometimes you don't know what boundaries are until they're crossed. So it's just about making the shifts as things come in, paying attention to your cycles. Do you work better in the morning? Do you work better in the afternoon? Do you work better in the evening? And making space for that wherever you can. A lot of taking care of yourself. Now, one of the most important things that you asked was around the high vibe and like the energy. Yes, I could see how in earlier days I would have had this belief that I needed to be happy, vibrant, joyful, engaging, charismatic. Like I had to be like a certain external demeanor to be able to, or even inside, it's like I want to feel alive. Like I want to feel like I have energy. I don't want to feel tired. Right? I can see how we could think in earlier days why we would need that to do this work. But I want to tell you something. It's not something I necessarily want you to strive for. It's something I want you to pay attention to if you find yourself in this similar situation where some of my best readings are when I'm too humbled, I'm too exhausted to think too much about the reading. And I just show up as a raw, stripped down, humbled human being with very low energy. I have actually found that those are some of my clearest readings because it's a bit more pure. And that does happen a lot nowadays. I went through an audit earlier this year. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. And I know it's a regular experience in business, and it is a normal part of business. And, I was selected. There was a lot of people in my world that were audited this year. So I think it's just kind of something that the government's doing. But it took every resource out of me, every moment I had. I was working till 10 o'clock at night, every single weekend, 30 hours a weekend. It stole all my capacity. But I have a project this summer. I needed to prepare for that as well. So while I was keeping the overhead, while I was doing the government's bidding for 4 months, on call every day, 10 invoices by tomorrow, Danielle. 10 invoices. Oh, the invoice doesn't have the right thing. Go get those invoices, Danielle. Unbelievable amount of administrative work, plus justifying my own existence as a spiritual healer. Oh my goodness, so triggering. But I still had a bunch of readings booked. I didn't have a lot of extra energy, but I have to say that this season of my readings from January to now have been some of the most enjoyable, powerful sessions I think I've had. And I really accredit that to all the work I've done up until now. Something I've been playing with in the development space is that I feel that all the years of sitting in the power, all the years of practice reading, all the years of meditating, all the years of intention setting, all the years of this heart-centered work prepare me in a way that I can just show up and do my work now. It's like, how do you prepare for your readings? I have been preparing for 11 years for this moment, 12 years for this moment. I will say that I really do intuit what sessions need to be moved and what sessions don't. I will tell you that as a young parent, especially in the first maybe 5 years of doing this work, practice and professionally, about 25% of my sessions had to get moved. And I used to book really far out. That was not good when I was first starting out. There was such a demand for my work just from word of mouth in the first couple of years. I was so blessed. And I think I had like a 500 person wait list within 2 years. I closed that wait list. I do have a wait list back up now, just actually in the past couple weeks, because I open up sessions monthly now. But back in the day, I would book, I think I was booking about a year and a half out. Like, people have paid and booked. So by the time somebody sat in my chair, they'd been waiting anywhere from 6 to 18 months for a session. That level of pressure in my first couple of years was horrible. Don't recommend, especially when at one point, I think something came up. I think I had my first anxiety attack and I had to move 18 sessions. Half of my life was rescheduling people. And I have to tell you that the capacity rescheduling people took was way more than actually doing the session. So I actually learned that you actually have more capacity than you think. And is this where you want to spend your energy, like shifting people around? I still have to do that to this day. I'm still having to navigate those kind of decisions. So once I went part-time, I still kept the wait list because it was evidence to me that there was demand for my services, and it was what gave me more confidence to maybe take the leap to full-time. But I would only book 2 or 3 months out. And that was really scary for me because a lot of people I was listening to who were talking about going from part-time to full-time were saying, don't go full-time until you can book 6 months out. And interesting enough, when I did actually take the chance to go full-time, I had a 7-week dry spell of no bookings. And I felt that was divine too, because I had to make a true conscious decision. I couldn't wait for something external to validate I was making the right decision. I felt like Spirit was forcing my hand. What do you want? And I had to make the choice to do it anyways, even though for 7 weeks I had 0 bookings. I was like, I'm doing it anyways, because there's a lot of reasons why I want to do this. And so I wanted the capacity to be able to do it. Now it's just always a balance of when do I want to do readings? How many readings do I want to do? So there's a lot of things I personally take into consideration. Whenever I know I'm going to be teaching mediumship, I will do a lot of readings before because I want new things to teach. Every round of the initiation is different. Every time, different classes, different teachings, because I insist on being a mediumship teacher that stays in the game. I will stop teaching mediumship when I stop practicing mediumship. I want to continue to grow and evolve, and I want to continue to have new teachings. So I do big sprints of readings leading up to the initiation so I can have new experiences to speak about, new teachings, and new things to encounter. And that really is why I love mediumship, is because you never master it. There's always going to be something to strive towards, and I love that. A lot of people can't accept that. They're looking for perfectionism and mastery. Can you master your nervous system? Can you master the words that come out of your mouth? These are the things that we can control within our mediumship and master. But when it comes to spirit communication, it's endless and boundless. And I think we're in a very pivotal time in mediumship in particular where it's expanding. It's expanding beyond just being validation, right? I did a quote yesterday on my Instagram. It's a chapter of my book. The chapter loosely is called Reconciliation in the Art of Mediumship. And I say mediumship is more than validation. It's about helping people make peace with the past, with loss, and sometimes with themselves. And that's reconciliation. And that really is a huge part of the work that I get to do. So I really do look forward to it. But let's go back to the schedule. So leading up to initiation, I'll always do a lot. If I have like a project I'm working on, or I have to do something kind of scary like film a TV pilot, then I will do a bit more leading up to it just so that I feel very comfortable and well versed in it. And then I'll take really big breaks from doing it as well. And this is where if you do choose to go full time in this work, you have to have multiple streams of income. If you like business, I'll be doing a business mastermind in October, just a small mastermind of 10 people for business. So that's something if you're interested in. I have a lot to share and teach on this. But yeah, my capacity really changes. I have to look at day to day, month to month, week to week. What does my capacity look like next month, right? So even looking at June, I have the Sacred Spirit Retreat for a week, and I'm going away for a week with the family. So I really only have 2 weeks to play with. Do I want to serve readings next month doing this? Do I want to teach like a master class, or do I want to rest? I'm going to choose rest, because it's been a wild year and it's about to get more wild. And I'm going to choose rest next month. So I'm not going to open up sessions next month. I'm actually not going to open up sessions till September, maybe even October at this rate. But I've done well over 100 readings this year already. And that's on top of my membership, the retreats, all the other things, my book writing, everything that I'm working on. So this season of my life, I'm consciously adding more readings than I typically would, because I'm also trying to increase my capacity. When I started this year, my word of the year was capacity, because last year I let my capacity shrink because I was grieving, I was triggered, I was burnt out, and all I could do was what needed to get done. I couldn't podcast a lot, I couldn't do very many readings, I did my retreat, and I kept Spirit School up. That's all I could do last year. I couldn't do any more. I couldn't even collab with people. People were so upset with me when I couldn't collaborate. I didn't have anything in me. I knew my capacity had to be served with the collective. That's where my capacity will go first, is my membership. They usually get the best of me, the best teachings, the best presence. That's where my capacity in my business goes. Of course, my family first. The podcast had to take a back seat, because as much as I know this podcast is like the best thing for my business, I'm not going to show up just because of business. I have to show up ethically and in my integrity, or else you guys will feel it. Imagine if I put out a bunch of crap episodes just to get things out there in the name of consistency versus capacity. That energy would be a lie. And you would feel that, because I'm working with intuitive people. It has to be in integrity. The declaration, I'm running that in September, is on ethics and integrity in the spiritual space. If you're a spiritual practitioner or space holder in any way, energy doesn't lie. So whenever you're thinking about how many readings can I do? I could do 10, but just because you can, does that mean you should? Think about what you're doing the month after, right? If you're holding space for a lot of people, maybe you want to choose to rest a little bit more in the month before. These are the considerations that we really have to make as spiritual practitioners. It can't just be about time and money exchange, because time and money is only one exchange. Capacity, energy, influence. These are huge energy resources that are harder to get and easier to spend, right? So we need to think about the decisions around our capacity on what we got day to day, month to month, year to year, and try to diversify, and also try to be very conscious about how you want to feel in the future. We tend to think just transactionally. And this was one of the biggest things that I learned moving from, the structure of corporate into the fluidity that is entrepreneurship. It's such an interesting balance because, in corporate, when I had PMDD or I was energy sick, I still had to show up to work. There were still expectations of me that I had to meet and I was being paid for to meet. And as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of demands for me at all times, including with the kids and the family. And truthfully, when I make decisions about my schedule, it's looking at their lives first. And I now only work during school hours. I will say that I purposely created a career for myself when it comes to the readings, because I think that's the most heart-centered work that I get to do in my life. I wanted to make sure that the readings, I wanted to do them for the right reason and the good reason. So I'm really happy myself that I built a career where I get compensated through my retreat, through the collective, through the initiation, through my programs, so that I get to continue to do my readings for fun, for the joy, for the service of it. But I know I've built what I've built for something. So we're going to continue the path that we have right now. And I'm going to continue week to week, month to month, season to season, to look at my calendar, to look at my life, to look at my heart and converse with my agent, which is spirit, and say, how shall you have me serve? And when I look at my calendar, something psychic happens to me. And I've tested this over the past 10 years. I will look at my calendar and I will just know, don't do readings this week. Do readings this week. And anytime I don't listen to that, I'm having to reschedule. Guaranteed that week I had the intuitive pull, I have to move those people. So I really do work with spirit consciously, and I feel psychically when I should be working and not working as well. And anytime I don't listen, something comes up. Like a kid gets sick, I get sick. I'm having to move people and waste capacity that I would rather spend loving on my kids or doing something fun. So these are a lot of the ways that I've had to look at readings over the year, the capacity. I want you to know and be careful when you ask for capacity to be built. Because earlier this year, that was my big word, capacity, because I let it shrink a lot last year because I was just kind of a bit toasted. And I was about 3 months into my audit making a coffee, and I was chatting with spirit and the world behind my mind. And I basically said, what the freak, spirit, is going on? Because I actually had to take out insurance for a stroke because I was like done and ready to like pack it all in. And spirit said to me, you wanted your capacity built. And I burst out laughing out loud. I'm like, are you kidding me? Is this how you're building my capacity? But I tell you, the things that I'm facing today, I had this thought last week because I'm going through a lot. There's a lot of projects on the go right now. I was like, the pace that I'm experiencing now, that I'm thriving in and that I'm nailing, I don't know if I would have this capacity if I didn't go through that audit for the first 4 months. Oof, what a tough teaching. But it's a teaching nonetheless. Don't underestimate your capacity. There's more than you think there is. Pay attention to how much capacity is wasted through thoughts that you can control and beliefs you may be able to let go of. And just take care of yourself first, and spirit will take care of you, I promise. Okay? I hope this is a helpful conversation, friends. Thank you for joining me on Spirit School today, friends. I am so grateful for this time that we spent together exploring the power of spirit, the depths of healing, and the magic of self-discovery. My hope is that each episode leaves you feeling inspired, empowered, and connected to the boundless energy of your own soul. If you've enjoyed today's episode, I invite you to take the next step on your journey by joining me in the Spirit School community. Inside, you'll find a vibrant space filled with like-minded souls, access to exclusive teachings, live mentorship opportunities, and the support to deepen your trust in your spiritual gifts while embracing your humanity. Visit myspiritschool.com to learn more and become part of this growing family of seekers and light bringers. Let's continue to co-create a rich life with spirit, love, and purpose together. Until next time, keep shining your light and walking your soul's path. Take care, my friends, and be well.